received for information.
Hello, everyone.
Second.
Okay,
We are just jumping on here. There is a
move by
meeting
Councillor
in Pickering
Brenner,
today,
second by Councillor Buck.
and a little birdie told me that
we
ICLEI
do have the
Canada was going to be presenting
that
their sustainability
are
report.
party to
So I thought we
the,
would tune into
report,
that
but is a staff,
and see if any
written
councillors
report. And
ask
Mr.
any
Bentley,
great
can you do an
questions,
introduction,
because
please?
we've done open letters to them, and
Thank you, Mayor
they
Ash.
haven't
Can you hear me
responded.
okay?
So
I'll
let's
keep
try
on
and
going.
get some questions on the record.
So yeah, just a
from
quick
ICLEI.
intro.
Just,
This is
who
the
is ICLEI?
2024 Measuring Sustainability Report.
Who funded them?
This is not
Who
new
founded
for
them?
the city of
What is their
Pickering. We've had
mission?
previous reports of this
What
sort
are they doing as far as
at a somewhat
influencing
regular basis. It's not
municipal
every year,
policy,
but it's
this
every
international
4 or 5 years,
organization?
depending on a
Okay,
number
so I'm
of
going to share my screen
circumstances.
because
But
it started.
was started in 2010. We had one in 2012, another one more recently in 2017. And this is the latest Measuring Sustainability Report that staff have worked on. This was developed by staff in consultation with regional partners, and certainly we've got representatives from ICLEI Canada here today who were working with the city to help support indicator evaluation and identify gaps in best practices. So they're available to answer questions as it relates to their work on this report, and certainly staff are available today as well to answer questions to the best of our ability if there's any questions about the report. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Councillor, you're on mute.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes. First of all, Councillor, I did invite you to have your questions submitted to staff, and I thank you for taking the time to do that. I understand there was a good exchange of information. So with that, the floor is yours, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Did you ask any of the other staff if they, any other councillors if they wanted to do that as well? Because I didn't see an email go through about them. Just curious.
I don't have the same problem with the other one.
Oh, the problem.
Problem.
We're starting
correct.
with that. Okay, so we're going to start with
following
that.
the procedural bylaw. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I only have one councillor that doesn't feel compelled to follow the procedural bylaw. So I just thank you for doing that. So you have the floor.
Well, respectfully, Mr. Mayor, you know, the people elected me to ask them hard questions, and I think I should be able to ask questions in the public spectrum as opposed to being behind closed doors. But I do have some questions for the consultants that are here today.
Okay, this is a staff-generated report. So the
Correct.
report is actually written by staff, and it's to receive information. So if you have questions in regards to the work product that they have submitted to staff in regard to this, that's fine. But if we're going down WEF or globalist agenda, they won't be allowed.
So you're not going to allow me to talk about the affiliation between ICLEI, the UN, and the WEF?
That's correct, yeah.
Can I just ask why?
Councillor,
they are affiliated, but no, they are affiliated. Okay. So can I just ask why?
I'll let them answer the question. Please pose your question.
Okay, no, I've got a few questions here to ask. So I wanted to start with, through you, Mr. Chair, to the delegates or the consultants here today. The natural cover section links habitat to climate change because forests, wetlands, and meadows absorb carbon dioxide, the CO2. For future reports, I'm going to ask, could we add a simple CO2 uptake estimate for each habitat with the assumptions shown? Like, for example, using common Canadian rates and the hectares in Table 6, Pickering's ecosystems absorb roughly 18,000 to 146,000 tons of CO2 per year, and depending on the age, condition, and the management. So a year-over-year table to residents so they can see the absorption trends along the report's greenhouse gas numbers would be insightful. Is that a possibility?
Councillor, I think I'll take a stab at answering that question, Councillor, and hopefully it's of assistance. You'll see in the report that we had in Appendix A of the Measuring Sustainability Report, we've got a methodology that speaks to how the indicators were developed. And I think to your point, what we're looking for is establishing some trends and having data that we can refer back to see what's changed in years past. So certainly when it comes to selection of new indicators for a future report, I wouldn't expect we bring a report forward again until maybe 4 years or 5 years, depending on just what makes sense at the time the data can be achieved. What we can do at that point when we're releasing a future report, we would certainly look at indicators to see about relevance and making sure that it's pertinent to the public interest, certainly to the city's interest. And I think some of the points you're looking for, those are things that could possibly be tracked, but we'd be going through that process again with, it could be a different consultant, it could be ICLEI, could be somebody else, but we're certainly happy to revisit that at a future date.
Well, we did sign on with ICLEI. What was it, in 2005? I think it was somewhere in the early 2000s.
Are you referring to the PCP? I think there was we provided information previously about that, and I think Chantel had shared some information. I don't think it was ICLEI specifically. It was another. It was a partnership. We haven't had any involvement with that group in quite some time. Chantel,
Why
maybe.
are they there?
Isn't it ICLEI?
Chantel, maybe you provide some clarity about that. I think it was the PCP partnership.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the Partners on Climate Protection Program. We've provided information in the past. We did complete that program successfully in, I believe it was 2014. We were recognized for achieving the final milestone of that program. Since then, we haven't needed to go through PCP for anything, or we haven't been involved with them. We haven't had the need to be. Because like I said, we finished that quite some time ago.
Okay. Well, great. I was just hoping that maybe the consultant that was here today could have answered the previous question that I just posed, because I would just like to see that, if we're going to be going through all this whole, entire project, that, we, at least we know the assumptions, like, we get a chart year after year showing, so we actually have a baseline to go with. So. Okay, my next question, if I could just move on then. Through you, Mr. Chair, the Air Quality Health Index measures ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and fine particles, but it doesn't seem to say that it's mentioning carbon dioxide. For the actions listed as air quality in the report, it says electric vehicle chargers and fleet, battery-powered tools, and smart commute. Can someone please explain in plain language how each reduces ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and the fine particles here in Pickering? And also, how are we going to account for upstream impacts from electricity generation, mining, the battery production, and disposal of those batteries?
Councillor Robinson, it would be helpful if you could point me to the page number that you're making reference to. If you can
I don't. It's within the it's within the air quality section. I don't have the. I didn't write down the page number. If you want to look that up.
Okay.
But the consultants, the consultants are here. Are we not going to have the consultants answering questions?
This is a staff written report, and you're asking questions about information that was written by staff, so they're best able to respond to it. If you have something about the work product that our consultants, the staff would be in a position to say that our consultants can answer a question.
Just as from a high level perspective, Councillor, with respect to the metrics, we source data from a lot of different sources to help with that, and there's a variety of sources. And Chantel, I don't know if you're able to speak to that one specifically regarding the EV charging. We would certainly have data as it relates to city use of EV vehicles, but I'm not sure if there's any more information you can provide in that context.
It doesn't reduce CO2 or those pollutants.
Ms. Whitaker, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. As Kyle mentioned, the data isn't necessarily ours for each of these, and air quality is a good example that you've raised. The air quality indicator, the data comes from the government of Ontario, so we don't have any control over what they measure. We can't really ask them to amend that. If there's other data sets that you'd like us to look to see if we can find, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, I guess we're gonna have to ask ICLEI that. Can they answer that by chance? I mean, this is their, this is theirs. I mean, they brought
Mr.
that forward to the city of Pickering, correct?
So,
Mr. Bentley, can you speak to
so
that?
just,
Like,
really
because
quick.
it doesn't include CO2. And I mean, that's what I was asking about. Like, why doesn't this include CO2?
So just really quickly, and if ICLEI wants to comment, they're welcome to. What I would say is ICLEI's role in this was to work with the city to help establish the different metrics and indicators to look at. The data itself would come from multiple variety of sources. Certainly, if ICLEI wants to add more details to that, if they're able to, they're more than welcome to.
Mhm. Okay, so then how does the initiatives of this lower the air pollutants?
So would you like us to answer, if you'd like to answer Councillor Robinson's first question, we can maybe speak to the next question after, if that's okay.
Sure thing. Pleasure being here, everyone. I'm going to be echoing a lot of what Kyle and Chantal already mentioned. With this indicator in particular, the data source was the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. And this is just simply how they said that they measure air quality in the province of Ontario. So we didn't come up with our own way of measuring it. We just went with how the established body is measuring this indicator.
Okay, and I don't mean to sound rude or anything, so I hope this doesn't come off that way. If you're just basically copying their indicators, then why are we paying ICLEI? Or like, why are you here presenting today?
So again, I think ICLEI's providing comments in support of the work that they did with the city to develop the indicators. I don't believe they come up with the data itself. Again, a data source from the appropriate reputable source. I don't know if they want to add anything more to that, but that would be my assessment.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can add a little bit more. So yeah, this along with all the other indicators that we, the final list that we came to, was based on a process of getting the most up-to-date and relevant indicators to measure sustainability in Pickering in a general sense. This was one of those indicators that was actually reported on before, and we wanted to be able to measure how that has changed over time. And so we go to the source of where that data is found, and this is how it's calculated. And so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're working with the data that exists and how it is, how it is measured over time, so that we can track progress.
all right, great. Thank you for that. And then just to go back to the second part of that question that I had asked, I asked, how do the initiatives lower the air pollution?
So just high level, Councillor, you'll see in the sections in the report, we identify things that the city and others can do to promote sustainable commuting as an example. And certainly this is to encourage, it's not to force people, but certainly there's options there that people can use if that's something that would work with them. And through that would be an initiative. This is qualitative in nature. It's not quantitative to come up with a specific measurement after the fact, but certainly in a future report, if it made sense to do so, that would be an indicator that we could show if there has been any noteworthy changes from several years ago.
Okay, great. And is it possible for our next regular meeting that we could have that you could bring a cost sheet for each action that is in that section? So the purchase price, the operating and maintenance costs, the battery replacement schedule, the end of life recycling arrangements, the funding sources, and the usage to date on all of that. And also, if you could, on the expected local change in ozone, the nitrogen dioxide and the fine particles as well, if we could have all of that.
So just a high level answer, Councillor Robinson, this report is meant to be a very high level overview. We certainly consulted with a number of agencies, both internal and external, to aggregate data that we could share in a chart form. So it's meant to be high level. This document in isolation was not meant to be the sole source of informing decision making, but certainly if there's interest, if there's data you're looking for that we have in our possession, happy to share that with you. It just might be through other initiatives. You may recall there was the charging station that was implemented at the Chestnut Hill Rec Complex. That was a very specific initiative that we wouldn't have, I think we spoke to very high level here, so we wouldn't have all of those data sources, but if you want to bring a series of requests forward, we can do our best to try and aggregate within the time frame that we've got.
Okay, perfect. And I just have a couple more questions, if I might. If ICLEI could just let me know, like, when they were founded, by whom, and under what original name, that would be grateful. That would be helpful.
Mr. Hawkins, or
Hawkins?
Miss Jackson, do you want to speak to that, Ed?
Yes, happy to, through the chair. We were founded in 1990 as the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. We were founded by a gentleman named Jeb Brugman, a Toronto resident, and it happened to occur at a UN meeting in New York. But we were founded as a Canadian organization.
Right. Okay, but you are also international, right?
ICLEI Canada operates as a Canadian. Ontario registered nonprofit organization.
Okay, perfect. And how is ICLEI Canada affiliated with ICLEI International then? And what is your current mission statement?
I don't see what the relevance of a report for information has to the governance model of an arm's length independent paid consultant. So move on, please.
Well, because I could tie it all in with the rest of my questions, Mr. Mayor, if you could maybe just have them answer the question. It should be an
I
easy
know how you're
question.
going to, Counselor, I know how you're going to tie it in. I watched the video already. Keep going, please.
Okay, so who funds ICLEI Canada?
Keep
Can
going.
we have a list of government grants, member dues, and any corporate support that they might have?
Ms. Jackson, do you want to feel free to answer that if you want. If you don't, that's fine too.
What I'm just wondering why would somebody not want to answer questions, Mr. Mayor? I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of members of the community that just want to know about ICLEI and what they do, who supports them, who funds them.
I highly doubt that's the case, Counselor. There might be some in your little world, but I don't think that's of general interest. Ms. Jackson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you please stop with the insults and the insecurities? You don't have to say my little word.
Counselor.
My little world.
Counselor. Yes, your little world. We watch it every weekend. Ms. Jackson, if you want to speak to your funding model, et cetera, feel free to do so. If you don't, that's fine too.
I'm happy for the point to be raised, but we were brought together to talk about the city's measuring sustainability report. So I'm happy to have that conversation. If the council would care to reach out, my email can be provided through Mr. Bentley or Ms. Whitaker, and would be happy to continue that conversation. But I think today's discussion should be focused on the report at hand.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will take you up on that. If I could get your personal email, that would be great. I do just have a couple more questions though, like how are we connected, and what council motion or agreement created the relationship between us? Because I still don't quite understand what ICLEI's role is in Pickering. So maybe if we could.
I can answer that. Oh. The 2023 budget allocated monies to our sustainability report. The ICLEI was retained through in accordance with our purchasing bylaw. The dollar figure was under the limit for the requirement of a full RFP. So it was approved by the budget of 2023, which was not a mayor's budget. It was approved by council.
Okay, so then did we seek out ICLEI to do this for us, or did ICLEI come to us? Did they sole source us out?
Mr. Bentley, could you answer that, or Ms. Whitaker?
Yeah, so we followed the purchasing policy in this case. ICLEI was involved in the 2017 report, and we saw synergies with that. And certainly it, from a staff perspective, it made sense. So the staff reached out to ICLEI in this circumstance.
Okay. And are we members of the FCM ICLEI, the Partners for Climate Protection program? I think we mentioned earlier that we did sign on with them in the early 2000s.
So I think that's what Ms. Whitaker had referred to, the PCP initiative, the partnership. We haven't had any active involvement with that entity for quite some time since that work had completed.
Is that why that program is not referenced in this report?
I think it was just a relevance issue. We didn't think it was relevant to this report, but Chantal, I see your screen's on. Did you want to add to that?
Sorry. Yeah, we completed that program in 2014. So it's not really relevant to this report.
Okay. So we retained ICLEI, but we're not allowed to ask ICLEI about what's on this report. Is that right?
It's not ICLEI's report. It's a staff report written by staff.
Right, but we did retain them. So shouldn't we be able to ask them the questions and have them answer, Mr. Mayor? With all due respect, of course.
Councillor, you're asking questions. You're getting answers. Please continue.
Well, no, there was a few questions there that you said that they didn't have to answer, and nor did they answer, and then you answered for them, or with all due respect, Mr. Bentley answered for them when I wanted to get the answers.
Well,
From
if it's not relevant to the report in front of us, then you had an invitation from Ms. Jackson to have an exchange of information. Again, that the information about their funding partners is not relevant to this report. And she's invited you to do that. You've accepted that. So let's move on, please.
Okay. Well, a lot of things that, you think that is irrelevant is actually relevant, Mr. Mayor, because you don't know where I'm going with my questions. Could ICLEI then, if they could just confirm the Paris Agreement, that it's a federal international commitment and that our municipal targets are voluntary, typically pursued through the Partners for Climate Programs Greenhouse Gas Reduction Framework?
Mr. Bentley, could you speak to if the Paris Accord is part of this report or not?
That wasn't part of this report. Councillor Robinson, I think the focus here was on the metrics and the indicators in the context of Pickering. Chantal can certainly add more content if necessary, but I don't think that was a focus of this report.
Okay.
No,
Are
that's
we
correct.
still tracking?
No, Ms. Whitaker
Yes.
wants to.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
that's
Go
fine.
ahead, Ms. Whitaker.
That's okay, thank you. No, as Kyle said, the indicators that we focus on are meant to be as Pickering centric as we can. That was part of the methodology.
Okay. Well, I just really want to get down to the heart of who ICLEI is, because it seems like I'm the only counselor who obviously doesn't know who ICLEI is because nobody else is asking any questions. Like, does everybody here know who ICLEI is and who they're affiliated with and all these other questions?
Councillor, that's not how we run the meetings. You ask the questions. If you want to get into debate, we're going to do that very shortly. Continue with your questions.
Okay, so
Questions
could we
are posed
get
to the staff, not to the other councillors.
Could we get a list of typical recommendations to reach our net zero for a city of our size? That is directed at ICLEI.
Mr. Bentley?
Councillor, I think you might be thinking of the corporate energy management plan there was a staff report that I believe was brought forward earlier this year. That report would speak to, I think, the city's commitment that was approved by council. Certainly happy to take that back and have the appropriate staff person bring additional information forward for you if that would be helpful.
That would be really helpful. Thank you. I would appreciate that. And I do have
Sure.
some more questions, but I think that will be, just give me one moment here. Does anybody else have any questions before I continue, or?
Councillor, I'm running the meeting.
Okay, I'm just asking you if there's anyone else who has any questions, or Mr. Mayor.
I'll identify anybody that's asking questions. You were the only one to put up your hand, so please continue.
Okay, well, no, I think those are pretty much all of my questions for today.
Thank
I will look forward to getting some more information and getting the email address, and then following up with Mr. Bentley to get the rest of my questions answered. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Okay, we do have a motion duly moved and seconded that speaks to receive this information, receive this report for information. So any debate? Councillor Brenner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity, I guess like all members of council, to go over the report in its entirety, but in particularly, I found a lot of the answers in the final, I believe it's I think it's Appendix C, the final appendix in the report that talks about several pages of sources of where the information came from. And I found that very, very helpful, Mr. Mayor, because it allowed me to use the links to find the information that I needed. And that to me was really important before I decided to move this matter. In addition to that, I did have the opportunity, and I did speak to Chantel, just to make sure of my understanding of what was in the report. And I was very pleased with the response that I had from Chantel leading up to this afternoon's meeting, Mr. Mayor. I hope that that's not taken as not being interested, but I felt it was very important to talk to the staff and clear up any questions that I might have that I didn't have as a result of that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Robinson.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there's a few things because I did forget to mention some things in the report, so I'm just going to have my comments here. So this report is for information only, and I realize that, but I would also like to have a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, we have to be honest here that once something is placed in an official city document, it doesn't just sit on a shelf. It becomes a reference point. It shapes how staff start to frame our choices. It influences future bylaws, budgets, and policy directions. And that's why the public has a right to know exactly who is shaping this report and under what authority. And that's why I need to ask these questions. And it's more than just my little world, as you would call it, Mr. Mayor. Because the truth is, the foundation of this report rests on a survey answered by only 254 residents. That was it. And that's less than 1% of Pickering's population. There's no random selection. There's no demographic tracking. There's just self-selecting answers submitted online. And yet those results are being held up as a snapshot of what sustainability means in our city. And that's not representative. I mean, so it really isn't legitimate in my opinion. And that's my personal opinion. And behind those numbers stands ICLEI, an international NGO who's tied to the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. And we're told that they don't make policy here, but they only support staff. But the reality is, once their framework, their data, and their definitions are embedded in our official reports, they influence the direction of our city without the people of Pickering ever being asked if that's what they really want. I asked questions to validate the data. And also, you know, I did not ask the questions, but I wanted to know who decided on these 33 indicators, because this is all ICLEI. It has nothing to do with the city of Pickering. This is globally, and it's the same indicators everywhere, and through the WEF and the UN, I might add. There are answers, and the answers are kind of vague. You know, I think that they're incomplete. And, you know, you brush some of them off, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, we're even told that if I want full transparency, you know, I probably, if I want to get all the information I want, you're probably going to make me do a freedom of information, but maybe not. And, you know, I think Pickering's future must be shaped by Pickering residents, our residents here that live in Pickering, not by ICLEI, not by the UN, not by global frameworks that treat every city as interchangeable piece on a chessboard. And, you know, we were elected to represent the 100,000 people who live here and not to outsource their voice to organizations that the public never approved. They never got to debate this, and they never even knew that this was on the table. So, you know, I would like council to think carefully, like, you know, do we want our city's direction defined by 254 anonymous survey responses filtered through ICLEI? Or do we want it defined by the real voices of the people and the families and the seniors and the workers and the taxpayers trusted to speak trusting us to speak for them here at the city of Pickering. Because the people of Pickering deserve better, they deserve transparency, and they deserve honesty. And above all, they deserve to know that their future is being shaped by a global NGO with no accountability to the people who actually live here in Pickering. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. And again, if you, just a reminder, I did ask for a recorded vote to receive as information.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for a fine point on debate, I would encourage the public, now that this is publicly available, to read the source list to debunk any of the misinformation Councillor Robinson has just pronounced. The statistical data and the source data is included, as Councillor Brenner noted in his debate, in Appendix C, which is the sources that come from a variety of sources, not just a public survey of 200
Point of
respondents.
personal privilege, please, Mr. Mayor. It's a point of personal privilege.
Okay,
I do
what's
not
the
like
point?
being insulted by Councillor Cook by her telling me about the misinformation. I know clearly
That's
what
her-
ICLEI
that-
is and who
that's
they're
her-
tied to.
Lied to,
Councillor,
so we're gonna
Councillor,
clear
you
that up.
gave your opinion. She's giving her opinion. It's perfectly in order. So,
Excuse me, with all due respect.
She listened quietly while you debated. Please give her the same.
Points of personal privilege, please, Mr. Mayor. You said it's not nice for us to be sitting there and disparaging other councillors, so I would appreciate that those comments from Councillor Cook, that she would apologize for them.
Okay, Councillor,
And she
No.
won't.
Councillor Cook has the floor.
Well, I'm
Please-
sorry, nothing I
please-
said was misinformation, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
or Linda Cook.
that's a point of debate. Please, Councillor Cook, please continue.
And since we're in debate, I'll go back to my debate about sources. If the public would like to read where the information was pulled from, without it being a global conspiracy theory, they can clearly read that it came from multiple sources, including the Government Ontario Air Quality Health Index, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority Watershed and Ecosystem Report, the Region of Durham Health Department, our Toronto Region Conservation Authority reports, our LEAF organization reports, as well as the public. So there are a number of sources in here, in addition to key
the
stats, that I would
legitimacy of
encourage the public to form their own opinion based on the cited
ICLEI
and
have
noted
to do with
sources that
this
are contained
report.
within the report. And I'm glad for
Why
calling
they're
for
there.
a recorded vote,
in the meeting.
because I will be in
in
support of
Pickering,
receiving this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
and why
Thank
they
you.
won't answer questions
I'm
about
going
who
to
they
speak
are
as well if there's
and what
no
their
other
mission is,
councillors.
and who funds them.
I'm going to support, obviously, the receipt from your information. This is very important. First line of the executive summary talks about tracks Pickering's progress toward becoming a more sustainable, resilient, and livable community. It speaks to the updates, all the indicators. If you want to hear, or if people want to do the research, as Councillor Robinson always speaks to, Google ICLEI, and it'll tell you about that it's been the target of conspiracy theories related to the support of Agenda 21, a non-binding UN initiative that seeks to promote responsible resource and land conservation. One thing I think we can all agree on. Agenda 21 was used worldwide and considered favorable for city planning. Again, something I think we can all support. The framework encourages local communities to develop concrete strategies to meet the needs through public involvement, open decision-making, and partnerships and networking. One would think that that's an ideal that all members of council can support. These conspiracy theorists have opposed sustainable planning efforts at local, city, and regional planning levels, claiming the local planning ban prevents genuine citizens' input. Where did we just hear that? Where did we just hear that there's no genuine citizens' input? I think it's right from the conspiracy theories playbook. Madam
Excuse me, a point of personal privilege, Mr. Mayor, there are only 254 people out of staff.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll, please?
Councillor Robinson?
No.
Councillor Brenner?
Yes.
Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Nagy?
Yes.
Councillor Pickles?
Yes.
Mayor Ash?
Yes.
Your worship, that's carried 6 to 1.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of the 2026 committee and council meeting schedule. It takes into account our election next year, as well as dates, religious holiday dates. I saw there's a recommendation to receive it and approve this schedule. Moved by Councillor Nagy, second by Councillor Cook.
I think they're on.
Questions or debate? Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, I have questions and debate, Mr. Mayor. So my first question is, why do we continue to schedule executive committee meetings at 2 o'clock when we know most residents cannot attend or participate? Doesn't this time slot deliberately
Okay,
limit
guys,
public
I'm gonna
engagement?
pause
In our
that.
procedural bylaw, and most governments meet during the day.
I think I lost everyone on Facebook. So hopefully if you're here on YouTube, you're joining me, and I shared the link there on Facebook. So was it just me, or at the end, did the mayor say that Agenda 21 was a good thing and something that every councillor should be on board with? So I think that's what I heard anyway, that he agreed that they were participating in Agenda 21 and that it was a good thing. So I'm going to watch that back. Lisa Robinson did a great job, and definitely have some feedback to send the Pickering Council. And yeah, it's definitely a front line for what's happening at the worst case scenario in councils across Canada, where, you know, debate is not welcome and questions are not welcome, especially to ICLEI. ICLEI refuses to answer questions. So all of those questions that she asked, we've already asked through email. So it's interesting that they're kind of diverting now and saying, oh, ask us an email. And yeah, it just makes you wonder why they were even there, because they didn't want to answer any questions, and how they disassociate from ICLEI International, and how they won't disclose just publicly their funders, when we all know, you can Google it, that Google partly funds them, and Google is partly owned by BlackRock and Vanguard. And we have a right to ask, you know, what are the safeguards that ICLEI has in place so that its funders do not influence municipal policy? Because BlackRock and Vanguard are big players in buying up, you know, land, industry, institutions, everything. And, you know, running all those main franchises that they're bringing into all of our small towns with their complete communities. So instead of your local coffee shop, you're going to your local Tim Hortons. Or, there's nothing wrong with franchises, I'm not saying that, but their version of complete communities or 15-minute cities seems to be a complete takeover of the corporations that are multinational and owned by the same shareholders. So that was very interesting. I will post a big write-up after, and thanks everyone for watching. Bye for now.